food chart. I think all of you have a copy of that in your folder. And this was a study that was done by Rutgers University. And they were really interested in looking at the mineral content of organically grown vegetables compared to non-organic. And if you take a look, like calcium, magnesium, iron, I mean, in every single category, it's on the right side of your folder. There you have it, actually. Stella, this is it, the food chart.
Oh,
organic food chart, yeah. It's a white handout, and it says right on the top, organic food chart. Okay. So what they took, and they looked at cabbage, they looked at snap peas, they looked at a whole bunch of different vegetables. And if you notice that the mineral content in every single category was so much higher in the organic than the non-organic. Okay, and that all has to do with the soil. So when the soil is not depleted, you're getting a lot more minerals. And the minerals are so critical for health. And when we get stressed out, the first thing we deplete on is vitamin C and minerals. Okay, that's why those things really get affected in terms of helping our immunity. So, and this same study, by the way, I know, people don't know, and that's why I think this is very important. I wanted to share that with all of you. The same study was duplicated down at Texas A&M University, and they, again, walked into a health food store, got a whole bunch of vegetables, and they also got a whole bunch of vegetables from the supermarket, and tested them, and they got almost identical results in a different part of the country. So the consistency of the results was there, okay? So very, very important. It really makes a difference. Don't let people tell you there's no difference in organic and non-organic. There really is. And even better, by the way, if you have local farmers markets around, the best thing is to go and shop there.
Even if they're not organic? There's a lot of them.
Very good question. If they're not, even if they're not organic, it's better than buying non-organic in the supermarket. Exactly. And then if you have the ability to get it organically grown from farmers locally, then try and do that. But those of you who are local, like the Pleasantville Market, they have a couple of organic farmer stands, and their stuff is really, really good, very fresh.
Dina, am I reading it right? The sodium content of organics are higher than the commercial?
Yes, naturally occurring in the soil. It's all from the soil.
Okay, but
right.
Suppose somebody has a high blood pressure problem.
Good question. You don't need to worry about it because the form of the sodium does not affect the kidneys.
Oh, okay.
Now that Joan brought that up, by the way, I should bring that up. You know that when you buy Morton salt at the supermarket, any salt that's been heated or processed will affect blood pressure. So when you buy raw salt or salt that's not been heated, and the coarser the salt, you can get sometimes coarse salt.
Is that why kosher?
Kosher salt is one example. Sea salt is another example. Celtic salt. But it has to say on the label that it's unheated. That's the key thing. Unheated, yeah. That's very important.
Just being kosher doesn't make it right.
Unheated.
Yeah, I mean, there's different types of kosher. There's some that's heated, there's some that's not heated. That's why the heating aspect is very critical. Because it will not affect blood pressure provided it's not been processed.
Now, is it true also that sometimes too much calcium would bind up, like potassium or magnesium? It's one of the two?
It doesn't bind up with potassium or magnesium, but it can have a binding effect for people with bowel issues. But that's only if you're only taking in calcium. But if you balance it out with potassium, magnesium, which often in food you are balancing it out, then it's a non-issue.
Excuse me, have you mentioned about celery?
Have I mentioned about celery?
And salt?
And salt.
Okay.
Yeah. No, did you want to add to that?
I was just wondering if, I had heard that celery is not good for someone with high blood pressure because it has a lot of salt problems.
Yeah, it's not only the sodium, it's also that it has a very high nitrate. And the nitrate and the sodium, when they bind together, that's where the problem becomes an issue. Yeah. So, I mean, like eating, you have to eat tons of it. I mean, 1 or 2 stalks is not going to do that. But we're talking about, like some people like to juice, vegetable juicing. So the key thing is you never stick to one vegetable when you juice. You do a combination of different vegetables. That's important.
Is it true that bananas don't have to be organic because they have a thick skin?
Yes, that is true. Very good.
Okay.
Actually, there's a very good site to go on that will list in order of what's most important that should be organic versus non-organic. It's ewg.org, environmentalworkinggroup.org.
But you know what I find? I find that the organic bananas have wonderful flavor.
They always get more flavor. Isn't that interesting? That's true. And that comes from the mineral content, again, back to the soil. So you're right, much more flavor in the organic, very good. Okay, hygiene. I mean, most of you know in terms of basic hand washing and, that kind of thing. But something that I also wanted to encourage you to do too is you know, you can often get these at either the health food store, you know, like a Whole Foods or a Mrs. Green's. You know, the toilettes that have essential oils in them. Anything with an essential oil is extremely effective at helping to, you know, use as a hand wash. Okay, sometimes even more effective than just using soap. But those are things that you can carry around in your pocketbook, in your pockets for the men, you know, that you can use, which is very helpful. Okay, so that's very important. The whole hygiene concept is true. I mean, that's not overdone, that is true. Okay, and then for cosmetics, very important. There's a lot of chemicals that are in a lot of cosmetics that you buy over the counter that, again, it's a cumulative effect that you are exposed to. And many of those things have been found to be cancer causing. And again, back to the EWG.org, I have that listed there for you, Environmental Working Group. And they will tell you what chemicals, you know, for certain have been found to be cancer causing, what are not yet confirmed, and what are safer. And then they will also list for you safe cosmetics, the product, you know, cosmetic products that you can get. And shampoos and soaps and things like that. Because that's a whole other aspect to immunity that nobody ever talks about.
Yeah.
When they say they're organic cosmetics, does it also mean they're not tested on animals?
Not necessarily. You usually will say that on the label. Organic doesn't necessarily mean that it's not tested on. That's a good question. And the other thing is, don't be fooled if it says organic. I mean, the ingredients could be organic, but they may not be safe. So it's more important to look at the list of what's safe in a product as opposed to whether it's, you know, okay. I mean, some of the organic stuff will be safe, but not everything is. You have to double check that. Okay, great. And then talking about stress, I mean, many of you know that, you know, stress is certainly a factor. What we don't think of, though, is that stress depletes us. Okay, and anytime you get depleted and run down, that's when you're going to get sick. Okay, so then that can be mental stress, it can be, you know, physical stress, job stress if you really hate your job. I mean, one of the worst things for your immune system is to be really unhappy at work. Okay, I mean, I can't stress that enough. And stress is really definitely a huge killer. We know that, again, and there's so much research out there on that. So really minimizing your stress, and whether that means, you know, to exercise more, whether it means to change jobs, you know, whatever it is that you need to do, you need to make sure you take that seriously, because that's very important. And it becomes even more important as we get older, because your immunity definitely is more vulnerable as you age. And that's why a lot of these factors that we're going over become even more important as we get older. Okay? All right, lack of sunshine, lack of light. It's so critical for optimal health to have 20 minutes of daylight every single day. That's the minimum we all need to get. Whether it means sitting outside for 20 minutes, whether it means taking a walk for 20 minutes, okay, that's the magic number, is the 20 minutes. The other aspect in terms of vitamin D, you know, they always talk about getting enough vitamin D being outdoors. Well, if you're wearing sunglasses, or if you're wearing glasses or contact lenses, you know what? If you can minimize that for the first, at least for 20 minutes, okay, that'll make a big difference on your overall health. Okay, because the glasses, the contact lenses, the sunglasses, all of that blocks out the beneficial, you know, ultraviolet that we need, which is critical to health. Most of the vitamin D is not only coming through skin, but it's also absorbed through the eyes. Okay, so that's another aspect too.